From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
I'm Brandon Warren, and coming up, we'll tell the story of Harper and Madison, a coffee shop which has been a staple in the Billings community.
But first tonight, as COVID cases skyrocket and questions and conflicts around vaccines, we travel back several decades when another new vaccine burst on the scene and put an end to a past epidemic. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, another big jump in active COVID-19 cases and 8 more COVID-related deaths across our state. Today, Montana counties report 629 new cases, bumping the total active cases to more than 4,200. Yellowstone County adds the most, with 119, pushing the total here to 720. 8 new deaths are also reported across Montana. 210 people are in the hospital tonight, an increase of 36 since Wednesday. Now, to date, roughly 1 in 20, or 5% of the reported COVID cases across Montana have landed in the hospital. Well, numbers are also growing on the vaccine front as nearly 460,000 Montanans are now fully immunized. That's 50% of the state's eligible population. Yellowstone County remains just below the state average at 48%. Missoula County leads the state with 62%, and Silverbow County sits in second, right at 60%. Garfield County has the lowest vaccination rate in the state at 23%. Now, those numbers are a perfect example that the controversy over the COVID-19 vaccine remains strong, a division that has some people wondering why. Well, tonight, Q2's Andrea Lutz looks back at the polio virus and hears from a generation who never questioned the efficacy of a vaccine.
The polio vaccine was around for about 40 years. Then in 1979, polio was eliminated. Back then, those generations never even thought twice about getting a vaccine. So I asked them what they thought had changed.
You listened because you could see.
Claire Leslie remembers the polio epidemic quite well.
It went on for a long time. It was almost every summer. We would not be able to go to the swimming pool or the parks. We had to stay home.
The disease caused paralysis. Even Franklin Roosevelt got it.
When you saw the results of polio, you wanted to be vaccinated. Maybe that's why we listened to the doctor, because you didn't really know why your neighbor got it, but you didn't.
But she says the vaccine was different than COVID and that you could see the results.
COVID is much more prevalent than polio was. Polio struck very randomly. It didn't get the general population like COVID has.
She also says that's just what you did back then.
Those of us who kind of follow the doctor's orders would never, ever not vaccinate your children against smallpox, against whooping cough, against now, when my children grew up, they all had measles and mumps and chicken pox, and now people can be vaccinated against those.
The evolution of vaccines has rich ties to the state of Montana. Scientist Maurice Hilleman from Miles City has saved millions of lives after inventing dozens of vaccines for hepatitis, measles and mumps, and rubella.
It's been good work. It's really exciting to see the science and what can happen.
There he is, as a kid.
Sharon Peterson with the Montana Bioscience Alliance says his work should make Montanans proud of vaccines.
Maurice Hilleman is like the greatest scientist of the 21st century that no one knows about. People need to understand the science, and I'm hoping that knowing that somebody from Miles City, Montana was the person would really help understand the science.
She also remembers getting the polio vaccine.
And in the days when they did the polio vaccine, I remember taking my small children to Lewistown for the vaccine, and we'd never thought a thing about it. It was just, yeah, we can get vaccinated, we won't get polio, and that's really important. So.
She believes that if Maurice were alive today, he may have even helped develop the COVID-19 vaccine.
He totally believed in what he did and really never took credit for saving lives, and I think he would be a little shocked that people are resisting.
And while COVID is completely different, both women agree They feel stumped at why there's so much controversy over vaccines.
Well, I try and be generous and say everybody has, people who haven't been vaccinated may have a reason. I don't understand the reason, but they may have a medical reason that I don't understand. I just can't be judgmental about everything, even though I want to be.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Now, the polio vaccine was not perfect. Andrea tells us that back in 1955, a tainted polio vaccine paralyzed as many as 50 children and killed 5. Now, that strain was infected with the live virus. Well, a Montana law passed this year prohibits discriminating against someone who has not received a vaccine. County health officials say this law has also caused some confusion. Now, the law keeps people, government entities, employers, and public accommodations from refusing and excluding services, goods, and employment based on vaccination status. Health Officer John Felton says under the law, the county health office cannot require that an unvaccinated person who has had close contact with a COVID patient be quarantined. He says the CDC states an unvaccinated person should quarantine. Therefore, House Bill 702 goes against CDC guidelines, which has made it difficult on county health officials.
We identify close contacts. We provide them information with what CDC says they should do. And much as the governor has said over and over, we expect people to make a personally responsible decision. We don't order them into quarantine. We don't track them in quarantine. We give people the information, tell them what the best science is, and expect them to use their personal responsibility to make a decision as to how they're going to manage their quarantine recommendation.
Now, vaccination status also cannot change the cost of your health care here in Montana, but consumers could be seeing an increase in costs in a few years. MTN's Annie Johnson has that story tonight.
Health insurance is already a complex topic, but when you throw in COVID and a pandemic, well, there can be even more questions, especially pertaining to cost.
I don't think health insurance carriers would go down that road.
The road of separation between unvaccinated and vaccinated costs. In fact, legally in Montana, they cannot.
The governor signed House Bill 702 in May, which basically made it illegal to discriminate based on vaccination status. Employers can still ask, but then people can decline to answer that question, and you cannot discriminate against people in their pay, their job, their employment, things like that.
Including health insurance. That protection is only statewide and can differ in other states.
Those types of things are going to become more prevalent. Montana is a bit on the leading edge of some of that.
So being vaccinated or not doesn't directly change costs for health insurance. Actually, a lot of general costs have been completely eliminated for consumers surrounding COVID-19.
All testing and vaccines are covered at 100%, so it doesn't cost the individual to go get those services.
This insurance specialist has over 30 years of experience and believes it won't be COVID-19 that drives the cost of health insurance in the future, but the lack of care to other health issues during this pandemic.
People weren't going to the doctor, couldn't go to the hospitals or doctor's offices for some of their tests, and now they need to catch up and go get those preventive exams and make sure they stay up on, cancer screening and diabetes testing and things of that nature.
So while COVID-19 may not have an immediate effect on Montana consumers, the lack of attention to preventative care could cause more big claims, which ultimately would increase costs.
Reporting in Bozeman, Annie Johnson, MTN News.
Now look to Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh in the Q2 Weather Center. Ed, storms are brewing tonight. What are you seeing on the radar?
We're going to follow storms, especially to the north and to the east of the Billings area. This is really the target area that's in the yellow shaded regions. And so far, areas of heavy rain, hail, and gusty winds have been developing, especially north of Billings. You can check it out there north of Roundup, around the Winnett area, where some of the storms have been producing the potential of up to about quarter-sized hail and wind gusts to about 60 miles per hour. And then on top of that, we've also got the potential for some of those storms to create quite a bit of lightning. So as the evening goes on, we're going to be watching areas to the east of Billings. You can see that line that starts to develop and pushes in around Forsyth, right across the area where the Richard Spring fire was, and that could cause some heavier runoff and then move out of the eastern plains. But we won't be done with it yet. Another round of storms tomorrow. And with that potential for hail, Matthew is here to talk about some tips to keep things safe.
So yeah, these storms could produce some gusty winds up to 60 miles an hour, lightning, and even the chance of some quarter-sized hail. So it's key to keep in mind some safety tips. Let's take a look. If you are outside, take shelter if these storms roll into the area. Do not shelter under trees because usually with hailstorms, they do produce lightning. And according to the latest available numbers, Wyoming is in the top 5 for lightning deaths or injuries per capita. If you can't find any safe shelter, cover your head as best as you can. If you're driving, pull over and find a safe place to park. Do not leave your car. And make sure to check your property for any damage after the storm has passed. We'll keep a close eye as these storms roll through the area. Back to you, Jeanelle.
All right, thanks so much, Matthew. Well, a familiar neighborhood place owned by a local and loved by many will soon close its doors for good. Tonight, Q2's Brandon Warren tells us about the successful journey and why now it's coming to an end.
After having served over 135,000 cups of coffee, Harper and Madison, a coffee shop which has been a staple in Billings, is closing their doors.
It was an experiment to see if you could build a business that was based on love rather than money. Even though I needed to fund college, it's like, I think this can work if the focus is not on money. And this seemed to be the perfect place for that. And I can tell you, it's worked. It works.
Joni is closing the doors on Harper and Madison because she's moving to be closer to her family. She says she'll miss the people more than anything, but the people say they'll miss her more.
I live in the neighborhood, and a lot of us do, and it's just been a wonderful place.
I mean, it's going to leave a real void in my day. It's, it's great coffee, great ambience, great people. I really miss the people, but the neighborhood's not going to be the same without them. It's too bad.
Harper and Madison has been open for over a decade, and some customers visit almost every day.
It's a community that's been built here that has gained strength and perseverance and joy and love, all of those things from each other. They just needed a place to come together and feel some love through food and service. It's all good. It's just all good.
Joni says owning the shop has been a dream come true and hopes to make someone else's dream come true by selling it. In Billings,
I got to live my dream for over a decade. Thank you to everyone who came here.
Brandon Warren, MTN News.
Thank you so much, Brandon, and the best of luck to Joni and her family. This Saturday is your last day to experience Harper and Madison for the last time. Up next on tonight's MTN 530 News on Q2, a state panel will soon decide where infrastructure funding will go. That includes water and sewer projects that need major attention.
Hey everybody, Scott Breen at Dela Stadium for game night. That's right, a Thursday night high school football season opener. Straight ahead, we set the table for Senior and Butte.